Hello everybody, welcome back to yet another episode of Planeswalking with the Professors. Today we'll take a look at Gabriel Nassifs' long and overdue standalone Pro Tour win and the other decks that came out of the tournament as well, and the some ever-changing aspects of the tournament scene and the players that make it come together. So let's draw. So we saw the Richmond results from last week, and sure, those were something to gloss over. However, that's just the icing on a Pro Tour cake. Thanks to the power of the internet, Wizards of the Coast has brought us a never-before-seen 18 videos, 8 deck techs, as well as an additional 82 provided by Star City Games, and lots more seen on sites around the net, like deckcheck.net. With a healthy 5 archetypes in the top 8, and dozens making fair showings in the tournament, I think we can say this metagame, as it was last week, is the best we've seen it since long before the dominance of the Fae. Now, take note that the results of this tournament are not based solely on these constructed decks due to the draft portion that knocked many out of contention or may have put people farther ahead in the constructed portion. However, as it was often not the case with LSV having won an unprecedented 18 rounds in a row and ending with 2 ties, and Gabriel Nassifs going 11-3, showing that in this metagame, almost every deck has a 50-50 matchup that can lean towards one or the other player depending primarily on that player's archetype, slight card choices, and sideboarding plans. Taking a look at Gabriel Nassifs' list, it becomes visible that he's taken more of a spot removal and stabilization than Cruel Ultimatum deck by using 3 Broodmate Dragons, Wall of Reverences, Plume Veils, over what would usually be Shriekmaws, Cloud Threshers, and Danuna. He also edited the Charm Suite to play singularly Esper Charm, mostly for draw, but at times when it was necessary to kill a Bitter Blossom, as well as the Uber deck tech one of Terror, Celestial Purge, and Pithing Needles. An additional something to note about this deck is that it runs 61 cards and has configured its mana base more so to cast the Cruel Ultimatum and less so for small and unnecessary white spells, 2 less of which include Wrath of God now moved to the sideboard. A final interesting thing to note about the sideboard of this deck is that it runs Widewind, an interesting addition that I think can act like great card advantage, and hey, a 3/3 Flash Flyer is always great. And finally in the sideboard is Scepter of Fugue. A few weeks ago when I detailed the importance of Esper Charm in the deck, I detailed that it would be less likely to be used for discard. I do believe in most cases this still applies, however, in accordance to more of what I said this week about how the sideboarding and play choices you make with a deck decide the outcome of the game in that Esper Charm, because it has the options to do this. If nothing else, after boarding to get aggro players to ditch those high casting cost cards, including Broodmates, or for other Cruel control players to ditch their Cruel Ultimatums, as a more powerful form of a card advantage is pressed. Taking a gander over LSV's deck list, who, wow, he did it again. LSV manages to place in the top 16 of a 3rd consecutive Pro Tour, including Worlds, winning 1 and putting himself right up there with Kai and Finkel. But aside from that, yes, the Kitchen Finks tech is in there, and Black-White Control is new, but what's that card? Head Games? Whenever LSV managed to land the spell, hilarity ensued. Get you to ditch your hand and pick up 7 come into play tap lands? Sure? Okay. From here, the decks begin to look a lot like they did at the 5K in Richmond, with the exception of the conception of this new Dark Bant aggro deck piloted by Brian Robinson. The deck begins with 2 sets of mana accelerants, Birds of Paradise and Noble Hierarch, and can excel to second turn Doran, Kitchen Finks, or Rock Swarmonks, while turning out the stuff in your opponent's hand with Tide Hollow Sculler and the stuff of the field with Nameless Inversion. And in the mid-game, the deck takes ultimate control with the monsters on the board like a turn 4 12-12 Doran in the red zone with a Rafik, or 5-6 Lifelink and Rock Swarmonk with the assistance from Wiltleaf Leech. But more importantly, this deck is held together with the insane Painland, Bosk, and Ancient Ziggurat mana base. I've tested the deck once or twice before, and found that it had an impressively powerful matchup against fairies, as well as a fair matchup against pretty much everything else. Of course, while it does rely on a little bit of luck when you flip a mana accelerant or get to the Gadok Teague to stop a Cruel Ultimatum from coming next turn, or getting just that right configuration of monsters to beat in with, but other than that, I think we'll be seeing this deck all over the place in the near future. So, to close off the summary of the tournament decks, we see lots and lots of boat brew as players clearly love the idea of all that card advantage. Seismic Swans in Standard piloted to 20th place by Shuhei Nakamura, and a mono-red deck trying to stay alive in this world of multicolor Magic. But until then, keep testing those 5-color domain decks. So the reaction from all but the most hardcore Magic players that complain about having to get new cards they would have had to get the previous years, with a previously almost equal number of quote-unquote newly produced cards to Magic 2010, has been great, and it's being introduced to multiple Grand Prix, one of which is Grand Prix Boston, which I plan to attend, where, speaking of which, it will be Sealed Deck, which will now be played with 6 packs instead of 5. And at first, while I hadn't seen the reason for the destruction of tournament packs, I now see the reason. For the fact that Sealed Deck will now be played with 6 packs, and because 6 is divisible by 1, 2, and 3, this allows for, depending on the period of Sealed Deck play, in a set of sets, the distribution of the packs evenly among the 6 slots, i.e., it is now possible to have 3 Shards of Alara packs and 3 Conflux packs, where it had previously been 6 Shards packs, and now allows for a format to later be 2 Shards, 2 Conflux, and 2 Alara Reborn packs, allowing the preferable even distribution of cards from different sets. Speaking of which, just to comment that while I don't, never have, nor ever plan to play Legacy, sorry to all those Legacy players who just jumped through the ceiling of their house and now through their roofs, as I've mentioned Legacy, but anyway, it would appear as if the Legacy metagame is greatly adjusting to all those underground players and Legacy players inside all of us who want to come out and play some Legacy in Chicago, the first Legacy Grand Prix ever. So that's all for this week, so until next time, this is Anthony Palmerio, tapped out for now, but will on tap soon.
Nassif forced to play off the top of his deck. He's going to slow roll all of us, himself included. He's drawn the card face down in front of him, and he hasn't even looked at it yet. He's trying to figure out, what can it be? What do I need it to be? Arrange my lands. He's got a sort of sly smile on his face.
My ultimatum mana.
Oh, this is ultimatum mana. That's the card that he wants. Cruel Ultimatum is the card he's hoping to top deck. And... Oh my God! Off the top! Wow! He arranged the mana in the shape of the one spell that he had to draw. Form of... Oh my goodness!